Welcome back to CriCri Aviation. My name is Jim Payne, and in this video we are going to do the final fit of the rear fuselage to the forward fuselage on the CriCri. Now the reason that we're doing that at this point is because in previous videos I had finished the frames that were in front of frame 4, but now we're going to start working on the frames that are aft of frame 4, between frame 4 here and frame 7, where the rear fuselage connects. Now, in order to start working on these frames in here, I have to get frame 7 positioned correctly, and we have to get the skins finished between frame 6 and frame 7. So we're going to do the final drilling, gluing, and pop riveting of the skins on the side and the bottom between frame 6 and frame 7. Once we're done with that assembly of the skins and the fit of frame 7, the rear fuselage is really set on how it's going to attach between the rear fuselage and the forward fuselage. The other thing that we're going to do is we are going to be checking the fit of frame 7 during this process. And in this video you'll get to find out some of the mistakes that I found on frame 7 doing this fit and what I had to do to fix them. So let's see, the other thing that we're going to do here is these corner angles carry through to the rear fuselage about 6 inches. That's where some of the connection is, and we're going to go ahead and drill out those angles to fit into the rear fuselage here. The goal here is to make it so that we could, once we get these skins on the sides and the bottom attached to the forward fuselage, that we could permanently install frame 7, but still keep the forward and the rear fuselage disconnected. In other words, I'm not even at this point permanently attaching the rear fuselage to the forward fuselage. I can cleco it together like this, but I want to be able to take it apart and know that it's always going to fit properly when I go and put it back together, so that I can finish the forward fuselage and actually get the forward fuselage on its gear. My goal is to have the wheels, tires, and brakes and landing gear on this forward fuselage before I ever go back and actually attach the rear fuselage. As much as I can get done with these two pieces separated, the better off I am, especially with my small workshop. So please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and remember to follow me on Instagram and Facebook. The links are in the description. And so stick around. We will go ahead and assemble the forward and rear fuselage together. Now that we've finished the majority of the assembly of the front part of the fuselage in front of frame 4, where the wing spars are attached, we're going to next focus on finishing the frames that are aft of the spar box. Now, the first thing that we're really going to have to do in order to start working on this is to get frame 7 installed and fit onto the rear part of the fuselage and actually finish all of the drilling of all the holes for the skins between frame 6 and frame 7, which we haven't done yet. Now, in order to final fit frame 7, what we have to do is I had to get the rear fuselage back out. And what we're going to do now is start actually fitting the rear fuselage onto the forward part of the fuselage, trying to get these angles fit inside of here. We have some rivets that we're going to have to drill out. We do have to round off the edges of these angles here so that they fit into the radius that's up in here on the rear fuselage. And our goal is to get the two skins for the front and the back, aligned here with no gap. Get this all pinned together between the front and the rear fuselage with frame 7 in here, and really get to the point where frame 7 is ready to be permanently installed and all of these holes in the skin are all drilled and everything is final fit. The reason that we want to get frame 7 completely installed, obviously, is because we need to work on frame 5 and frame 6 in here and get the seat pan and everything set up, and we really don't want anything to move any longer from here back. We should be really at a point where we can install frame 7 permanently and then later come back and take the rear fuselage, slip it onto the end, and then final rivet the rear fuselage skins all the way around and glue that all together as it mentions in the manual. So the first thing I'm going to do is just start setting these up and positioning these two parts so that they can be fit together. I'm going to have to set up some tables here. I've got my plastic tables set up so I can just kind of get everything level and secured so that we can start sliding these two parts together. The front fuselage I still have on its front form, which is fine. So let me start just setting some of this stuff up, and then we'll start working on prepping the rear fuselage to be able to fit those angles into the back here. I'm starting to set this up now and see if I can fit the rear fuselage and the front fuselage together. I did go ahead and attach frame 7 to the rear fuselage, but I'm actually going to have to take that apart. I didn't realize that you can't bend these out enough to get them into the corner holes here around frame 7 at the end because of the the curvature of the fuselage. The top ones would move over enough, but the bottom ones, because of frame 4 and the fact that it's secured all the way along the bottom with the frames, these don't move much at all. So what I'm going to do now, I guess, is take frame 7 off, try and get the rear fuselage elevated enough and at the right level so that I can just slide these into the rear fuselage, and then I'll reattach frame 7 on the sides once it gets fit into place. I did go ahead and drill out the 4 rivets on the top and the bottom into the rear that were in the rear fuselage, because that needs to overlap here, and we're actually going to drill in 1/8" holes into these and widen these holes out. The other thing I did too is I did go ahead and sand down and round these with a file. These should now fit closer to the radius of this bent side skin here when I fit it together. So let me see if I can get this elevated a little bit more, take frame 7 off, slide these two together, and then we'll see where we're at. All right, well, the preliminary fit here looks really good. I was able to get frame 7 into place. I did have to just widen the corners here a little bit where the angles go over, because it wouldn't quite fit in. So I did have to take a little bit of material off here in the corners, which isn't surprising, because these angles are slightly larger than what was specified in the plans. But yeah, let me go over to the other side here. I think you can see this better. So the skin is lining up perfectly along here now. And then you can see inside of here, you can see the skin here along frame 7 just fits perfectly down at the bottom with the angles. So I'm getting close to being ready to try and drill some of these rivet holes out, these along here. I think what I am going to do though is just round these angles a little bit more. They don't seem to be fitting quite as tight into the corner of the rear fuselage as they really should, so I think I just need to take a little bit more material off on the outside corners of those so that they fit a little bit better right along in here. And then I should be at a point where I can start drilling out these rivet holes. So yeah, this looks amazing. It looks huge in my shop right now that I have this thing together. It looks gigantic. World's smallest twin-engine airplane looks big to me. I don't know. But anyway, you put the two halves together and it all of a sudden gets really long. So, but yeah, I just need to do a little bit more fitting here, and we should be good to go ahead and install frame 7, or at least get all the rest of the holes drilled for frame 7. So I made a little more progress here on the fit between the rear fuselage and the front fuselage. I now have frame 7 fitting in here without any binding in the corners, which is good, and I can now slide the rear fuselage onto these angles in the corner without, again, anything binding or sticking. So I'm at a point now where I'm ready to start drilling some of the holes here. Now, what I'm trying to do is figure out the correct order to do this in so that I don't drill in any misalignment. I can already tell that the skins, they fit perfectly along here between the seam here. At least that doesn't seem to be a problem. And from the height, I can see that the top edge of the skin is lining up exactly with the top of this corner cap, which it should. So what I think I'm going to do is actually drill all the holes in the skins here and get them connected along these corner angles up to frame 7 here. So at least I have the skin height correct from top to bottom. Then what I have to do is make sure that the rear fuselage, it isn't sitting high or low on those or pulling anything down so that it goes up. There is supposed to be an overlap, I believe. I need to check this. I think there's supposed to be an overlap that goes underneath this on the top of frame 7 where this this rail cap that goes across the top of here goes actually underneath here and across. I believe that's how it works, which means I have to make sure that this frame 7 is pulled down to the bottom of the fuselage properly before I drill these holes. Otherwise, if I drill these holes in and there's a gap on the bottom and not on the top, I've now permanently set that gap to be in the wrong spot. So I'm trying to really spend some time here making sure that I get this fit as perfect as possible. And it's going pretty well, but like I said, I think I'm going to start drilling these holes in the skin and get the skin attached first. Then I think what I will do is probably work on attaching the corner angles to the rear frame, because then I'll have the skin pulled in here. I'll be able to check the gap here, make sure this is pulled tight, and then I can get these corner angles drilled into the rear fuselage so that I can pull those tight into the corner and know exactly where they need to be before, again, I drill this into frame 7 on either side. I think that's going to be the best way to do it. That way, if frame 7 needs to come up a little bit to create a gap, or go down a little bit to create a gap on the top, I can go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to keep working one bit at a time here, just making sure I don't screw anything up, because this is one area of the fit of this that won't look good if I don't have it as perfect as possible when we drill it all together. The other thing I am checking during this process of trying to get the forward fuselage connected to the rear fuselage is that I am taking a digital level and putting it across the fuselage here in the front and checking for level, then coming back here, checking the forward part of the rear fuselage here for level, and then checking right in front of the vertical fin for level. Those 3 spots, I'm trying to make sure that those are all staying, you know, as close as possible to level. Obviously my tables here are not actually level, but as long as I get the same reading no matter where I put this, I know I'm good. So anyway, so I'm doing this in those 3 spots just to make sure. And then what I might end up doing is actually putting my pin across where the horizontal goes through on the vertical fin there, just to double check the level across there. Now, this whole thing is actually tilted a little bit this way because between my tables and all of the leveling stuff that I have underneath here, it's not perfectly level, but it is level across the 3 spots. In other words, I'm getting the same reading. So that's the main thing that's important here. So before I left the shop yesterday, I went ahead and drilled the skins here between frame 6 and frame 7 and attached them to the corner angles on both the top and the bottom. As you can see here, I actually have this flipped upside down today because also before I left, I went ahead and drilled out the holes here for the angles that have to fit into the rear fuselage on the top side. And those were pretty easy to do because there's, you know, the front fuselage is completely open on the top side, so those just need to be pulled to the side and drilled into place. And then what I did do is I checked the skin fit between the bottom here and the top here to make sure that it was exactly the same height on the front fuselage here that was loose as it was on the rear fuselage here, and that everything fit together perfectly, which it did. If it didn't fit together with these angles pulled all the way up and all the way down, I may have had to trim some off the skin to get the angles to come together a little bit, or left a little bit of a gap if they pulled it apart. That's why this fit is very important, that this forward fuselage skin matches exactly the same height as the rear fuselage skin, so that you don't have any misalignment or gaps on the top and the bottom. I didn't, luckily, and so everything fit good. So I went ahead and final drilled, or at least drilled out to the 3/32 size, the angles that go into the rear fuselage on the top. Now, there was no easy way for me to get to the angles on the bottom without just flipping this whole thing upside down, which is why I have this upside down today, because I haven't drilled any of the angles and holes into the rear fuselage on the bottom. And it's much easier to see the fit here now that we have this flipped upside down. And of course, my fit here is what's important, and it's absolutely perfect. You can see the lower skin of the forward fuselage goes underneath the lower skin of the rear fuselage. They fit right on top of each other. I've got a nice tight corner right here, which is perfect. I've got the same thing on the other side. So I'm at the point now where I can go ahead and start drilling out these holes here into those angles that are inserted into the rear fuselage, and then I also have to mark and drill holes through the side here. So I think this is all going to come together pretty well. I'm just going to try and get all this drilled. Now, I actually don't have frame 7 installed right now. You'll see these skins are kind of loose. What I found out when I was working with this right side up is that frame 7 doesn't matter. For anything that we're doing here, frame 7 does not matter for the fit of these corner angles or the fit of these side skins. These side skins just need to butt up against each other as perfectly as possible. The height here has to match as best as possible between the front and the rear skins. And these angles here in the corner are going to go wherever they're going to go here. If you're drilling through and attaching these corner angles, they're going to pull up to whatever that is in the rear fuselage, regardless of how they are on the front. So you don't have a lot of adjustment here like you think you might. We do have the skins here perfectly set up on the forward fuselage as far as, you know, them being flush with the angle on either side. So that is correct. The only thing that we could do is maybe make a little gap on the skin on the top and the bottom, which isn't going to look good. Luckily, this all fit, you know, within tenths of a millimeter. So I've left frame 7 out, and I'm not going to worry about frame 7 because all frame 7 does is tie these two skins together once the angles and everything and the size has been determined, which is determined by these angles basically pulling this fuselage outward and kind of blowing it up and making it the correct height and width for frame 7 to fit in there. And then of course we got all these holes here which go through the two bottom skins, both the rear fuselage bottom skin and the top bottom skin, or forward fuselage bottom skin, which goes through frame 7. So I want to get all these drilled because they're already marked into the rear fuselage here. And then I have frame 7 over here, which of course is already drilled on the bottom for all those holes that were match drilled to the rear fuselage bottom skin. So once I get these angles then all drilled, then I will put frame 7 back in. I'll go ahead and attach it all the way across the bottom here. I'll attach it down the side, and then we'll double check the fit of that. Now the fit from side to side seems to be perfect. When I attach this before to the rear fuselage skin, it fits with the front and it's not pulling it in or pushing it out, so that seems good. However, I think I do have an issue on the top of frame 7, which I'm not going to talk about here. I'm going to mention that after I get frame 7 installed, and I'll show you the issue that I believe I'm going to have, and I'll show you how I'm going to fix that. So let me get these angles here on the bottom of the fuselage drilled and pinned together. Then we'll flip this back over, we'll reinstall frame 7 and double check the fit one last time. But yeah, we're getting pretty close. This actually is coming together really nicely, and luckily everything is fitting really as good as it could. So I'm going to work on drilling some holes here, and we'll come back in a minute. Alright, I was able to finish getting all the holes drilled, at least to the 3/32 side for the angles that go into the rear fuselage on the bottom side, and then I also drilled the holes all the way across that were marked already on the bottom skin. And this actually turned out perfect. This fits really, really well. These two seams are flush, but I do have an issue on the other side I want to show you. So if we come here to the other side, you can see this skin is bowing out. And of course we don't want that. So this indicates that the forward fuselage here is actually set up to be slightly taller, at least with where I've temporarily fastened the skins compared to the rear fuselage, and that's why it's bowing out. Now, I can push it in, and if I riveted this, you probably wouldn't notice. I'm not even sure there would be a ripple here, but there could be. There's enough tension on it that we need to fix it. Now watch what happens here. If I just simply pull this sheet metal fastener out, this one out, you can see how much of it's already fixed already. If I pull this one out, it basically completely goes flat. And if you look at the skins here, you can see that the skin here is flush with the angle and then starts going up here to where it's almost flush now with the skin. So I've actually got now an overlap between the side skin and the top skin. So what that means is basically right in here, I've got to take out about 4/10 of a millimeter. It's less than half a millimeter because it's not even going the full thickness of this 20 thousandths. But what I'll end up doing is just taking a file, and I'll just file down this edge here just so it makes it so that, again, it's flush with where it should be with the angle. And then when we final drill these holes out to the 1/8 inch size, it'll automatically fix the skin problem because it will adjust these holes that aren't quite perfectly aligned to take that tension out of it. So again, it was an easy fix. It's back to now where it should be. This was just a tiny bit off. It's not a big deal, and it's easy to fix. So what I'm going to do probably is just drill these holes out again to align them with the ones in the angle so I can get the temporary sheet metal fasteners in with the tension off of it. And then, like I said, when we go back and actually have frame 7 installed here and drilled with the Clicos installed, then when we go back and drill these again to the 1/8 inch size, it will fix the entire problem. So I just want to point that out. Nothing ever comes out perfect, so I just wanted to make sure that you saw that that's an easy fix, even though I had already drilled these out. And again, it wasn't off much. That was less than 1/2 millimeter. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do next is, what am I going to do next? Okay, I'm going to install frame 7 now and get that connected in here and just check its fit, and I'll probably end up flipping this back right side up. So I flipped the fuselage back over and I reinstalled frame 7 just to check the fit, and I have some issues. So one of the issues is here in the corner. I compensated when I made frame 7 on the bottom side to allow the front fuselage skin to fit underneath frame 7 between the bottom skin and frame 7. So frame 7 essentially has to be 20 thousandths shorter in order for that skin to fit underneath there. And I put shims underneath both sides when I originally made frame 7 and fitted into the rear fuselage. But what I didn't realize is that the top here, there's a combing that goes along the side of the fuselage here that's supposed to follow the top of this corner cap, go underneath the lower skin here where that gap is, and then it's supposed to cross over out to about right between these two rivets here. So what that means is this combing that's supposed to go over the top of here is supposed to be flush with the top of frame 7, which means frame 7 really should be flush with the top of this cap here, not the top of the skin. There should be a 20 thousandths gap right now between the top of frame 7 and the skin. I didn't compensate for that, so my frame 7 right now is actually too tall, and I'll show you in the drawings here what that looks like. This is what the drawings look like. So this is that combing that's going to go over the top of that cap. It's supposed to go over the top of the two rivets, one that's on top of that corner cap and the other rivet next to it that's part of the skin there, and then the skin is just supposed to be bent down around that. So the top skin that goes over the rear fuselage is supposed to conform over the top of that that corner there. So So in trying to figure out what the fix for this would be is, instead of just replacing this whole top piece, which I could probably do, it's 4 rivets in each corner and I have to re-rivet this in here, and I could lower this whole entire thing so that it fit across here. But what I also could do is I could just joggle the end of frame 7 here on each end so that this combing piece that came across here would be flush with the end of frame 7 where the overlap needs to be, and then once the skin here is placed over the top, the skin then would be completely flush all the way across here. So that would be a good way to fix this, I think, without rebuilding this, and also make an improvement in that this skin that goes across the top here would then be completely flush by just joggling the end of this. So that's one fix. But I ended up with another problem here that I wasn't expecting. So I don't know if you can see down here, but there's a little bit of a gap between that angle right now and the skin, and I can see that frame 7 here is sticking out about a 1/2 millimeter from the edge of these side angles, which means frame 7 is actually too wide and it's pushing the skin out here. And I'm a little bit concerned that I'm not going to be able to get rid of that when I try and rivet this together. So I've got to figure out what to do to try and just narrow this a little bit. Everything seems to fit really good on this side. I still got the same issue on the top there. This skin is actually pushed up a little bit, but I still got the same issue on the top corner over there where the same as this, where this needs to be flush. So I've got a couple different things I'm going to fix. So I'm going to take this out right now and just try and decide what I'm going to do. This isn't an easy fix without replacing the whole side piece and re-drilling the rivets in here, which I don't really want to do either. I'd have to make a new side piece because the rivet holes are already drilled to the full size. So yeah, I've got some problems here, and all of this is really because you get a sloppy fit with all of this when you're just working with the rear fuselage. These skins are kind of flimsy. You're trying to, you know, figure out exactly the right size of this, how it's going to fit in there. And this is certainly in one case where things didn't work out in my favor. All right, so let me take this out. Let me look at it and see what I can do, and I'll show you what it looks like once I've figured out a solution here. So I put a joggle here on the end of frame 7. This actually is going to work out really well. You know, now I can fit the cockpit border here now over the top here. It fits right underneath here, and then when the skin is riveted down here, it will be flush all the way across. So I almost think that's a better solution. So even though I made a mistake here, the end result is I think we made an improvement. So I guess theoretically you can say I never make mistakes, I only make enhancements. Is that what it is? So, but anyway, I think this is going to work perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and do this on the other corner there to fix that one. And then you can see I actually did take the rivets out of the top here, by the way, just to make sure that I could get into here. I did have to cut a little bit off the top of this side frame because it was right on the edge there where I needed to do this joggle, and that would have interfered with it. But I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing at the top on the other side, and then I'm going to figure out if I'm going to have to replace the side piece. I think I might have to fix the thing at the bottom of the corner there where I've got a little bit too wide, where the frame's just a little bit too wide. I'm afraid that's not going to be fixable without replacing that side piece and just re-drilling the rivet holes with that in the correct spot. So yeah, let me go ahead and do the joggle on the other side, and then I'll see if once I get these 4 rivets out of the corner here, what I'm going to do with the bottom half. I don't think I can bend the outside of that to eliminate that little bump out at the bottom, but I'll take it one step at a time here. Let me fix the other corner. So now that I've got the top of this frame 7 fixed with the joggles, I did decide to go ahead and cut out a new side piece to try and fix the adjustment at the bottom where it was pushing out on the skin. It seemed to be the quickest and easiest way to fix it anyway. So what I did is I put this frame back in there, and you know, because it's got these cross braces in here, these other 3 sides are still, you know, pretty firm in their position. So I was able to put this back in the airplane, and I was able to put this new piece in there and then clamp it in the correct spot so that the skin wasn't pushing out here at the bottom, put it back in the right spot here at the top. And now I'm just going back through with the clamp still on and just trying to drill out the holes for the rivets that were obviously already in the previous pieces here. So I'm just lining them up and drilling them out, and then I'll just go ahead and I do have to drill this angle piece back in here that's on the other side. I got to put that back in here, drill those holes out. I'll allodyne this and just pop everything back together, and I should be back in business. Put it back in. I will have to drill the rivet holes here on the side back into the rear fuselage, but because they're already in the side panel here, once I put that frame back in, I should be able to drill through these and hit the same holes that are already partially pre-drilled to the 16th inch size here. So it took me a little while to fix this, but it's not that big a deal. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this all back to where it needs to be and get it all riveted together, and we'll stick it back in there and see how it fits. All right, I've got all the rivet holes that were already drilled in place, put back into this new frame that I'm installing. I've got the bottom here now fixed, so if I take the skin here and push it up against the side, my gap goes away now that was there between the skin and the angle, so that's good. I think what I'm going to do here, though, is take advantage of the fact that I don't have this permanently attached to this frame right now, and take the pop rivets out of the, take the clecos out of the corner and pull this other, you know, 3/4 of the frame out, leaving this piece attached to the rear fuselage here. And then from the back side here, I'll be able to get a drill in, and all the 16th inch holes that are already marked in this frame that go through the skin on the front here, I'm going to drill through the back side. It'll be a lot easier to do that with the rest of this frame out of here, so I can get my drill in here and see in here with my head. So let me go ahead and do that now real quick. Then I'm going to take this apart, allodyne this part, and final pop rivet it into place. Then we'll put it back in again one more time, and I'll get the remaining holes for the skin on the side here that need to be put into frame 7 drilled into that side next. All right, I finished getting the 3/32 holes in both now the front and the rear skin of the frame 7 frame that I haven't permanently installed to frame 7 yet. But I got to thinking I need to drill these holes in this front skin on the other side there but the other side is already attached to frame 7, and it is really difficult. It's really difficult to get my drill back here and get into these, and it's going to be virtually impossible with the cross braces in there and the top and the bottom pieces. But what I decided to do is, since I took this off of this side of frame 7 to replace it, what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to attach this to the skin over here. On this side, on the outside, I'm just going to use Clicos, and I'm going to Clico it to the back skin so that these front holes then are all aligned. I should be able to, and in fact I'm going to cut this off so that it fits in here better, or so I can get my drill in here better. But I'm just going to attach this to the rear holes that are already here, and then I'm going to use my drill and just drill the 16th inch holes in the front here. Then I'll put frame 7 complete back in there, and then I'll final drill those to the 3/32 size, or at least not final drill them, but drill them out so I can put the temporary sheet metal fasteners in there to the 3/32 size, and that'll be an easy way to at least get these holes into the front skin without having to reach around and try and do it from the back side of frame 7, which would be, like I said, virtually impossible to do. So let me get these holes drilled in here, and I'm going to take that off, Aladyne it, get frame 7 riveted back together, put it all back in here, and try and get all of the 3/32 temporary sheet metal fasteners in here with this all together, and then at least I'll be at a point where I know that I can detach the rear fuselage and now continue to final rivet glue this front part of the forward fuselage so I can get onto frame 5 and frame 6. Alright, so let me get all this done and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Alright, frame 7 decided to show up and rejoin the build. It agreed to cooperate and I have a very nice fit now on all 4 sides and all 4 corners on frame 7. I just put these little scraps in this corner here to simulate the cockpit combing that's supposed to go along here, that's supposed to go underneath that. And so now that I did do that joggle at the ends of frame 7, now I have a perfectly flat skin that goes across the back of the fuselage. I think it's a very good solution for that issue. You can see I've got now all of the temporary sheet metal fasteners installed here where the skins overlap. I've got a perfect joint in there with no gap. I've got a perfect fit down here at the bottom where the overlap is. I don't know if you can see that in the camera or not, but the skins overlap there, and I've got it held together across the back side there with temporary sheet metal fasteners. And I fixed the corner down there where the skin was kind of pushing out by replacing this frame here. So this looks great now. I think I'm at a point now where I'm going to move ahead with securing the skin back here between frame 6 and frame 7 on the forward fuselage. Again, the whole goal of this was to get everything fit in here so that I can start working on frame 5 and frame 6 here. And of course we wanted to make sure that frame 7 was securely attached and everything was fit here so that we can final rivet and glue the skin into place. It's getting near the end of the day now, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and glue these angles here between frame 6 and frame 7, since I have all this held together with the Clicos. And so what I'm going to do is glue the angles on the bottom here, bottom skin and bottom corner, the other skin on the other side on the bottom corner, and also the top corners here. I'm not going to glue anything obviously with frame 7 at this point, but I just want to keep all this together so that when I glue and pop rivet this skin on, that all of this stays in proper alignment. Now what I think I am going to do though is, after I've applied the glue and after I get the rivets across here, rivets across here, and rivets across the bottom, I am going to go ahead and take the fuselage apart. Because I'm a little bit concerned that I'm going to get glue inside of here that's going to be touching frame 7. I might get glue between the 2 joints here, at least down on the corners. I just want to be very careful that I've cleaned up all of the glue so I don't have to go back and try and scrape things off. I think that's going to be the cleanest way to do this, but I want to have this dry overnight, so I'm going to go ahead and do this before I leave today. So let me go ahead and mix up some glue, and I'll go ahead and glue these skins on both the bottom and the sides. Okay, after looking at this, I'm going to have to do this a different way than I had expected. I can't remove the bottom skin to get into there to glue it with the rear fuselage attached. because of the way the skins overlap on the bottom. I can get to the side here. For example, if I remove these clecos down here in this pattern, this skin will peel back. I can get behind it and I can pop rivet it together. But I don't want to, I haven't final drilled any of this to the 1/8 inch size, and I don't want to disassemble anything until I've final drilled everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first go ahead and take one of these clecos out at a time and drill it out to an 1/8 inch so that I get all of the holes that go through the angles here on the bottom, the sides, out to the correct 1/8 inch hole, and for them to be drilled precisely with this all fit together. It does make a difference, obviously, when you go to install a rivet. It will want to go back to its exact spot where it was drilled to between the two pieces of material. So I'm going to go ahead and drill everything out first that needs to be drilled for everything in front of frame 7. I'm not going to drill any of the rear fuselage stuff yet. I'll drill that when I go to install the rear fuselage permanently. Once that's done, I think what I'll do then is glue each side at a time. So I'll go ahead and take the sheet metal fasteners off here and down here. We'll peel it back. We'll put glue in there. We'll go ahead and pop rivet this together. Then we'll do the same thing along the bottom here. We'll pull that apart, put glue in there, pop rivet that together. We'll do both sides. Once that's done, I think what I'll have to do then is take the rear fuselage off and flip this upside down, and then go ahead and just rivet and glue the bottom skin as a separate process. I don't know of any other way to do it. I just have to assume that, you know, the alignment of that skin width-wise will stay where it is. It should, because I'm going to drill it all before I disassemble it. So that's the goal. I think that's going to be the easiest way to make sure that I don't get anything misaligned here, and that all the work that I've done to get frame 7 to fit in here will still fit when it's done, and these skins will still fit together precisely when it's done. So let me just start drilling all this out, and then I'll start preparing to glue.